Hello, my name is Dave Clapp. I'm with the Michigan DNR Charlevoix Fisheries Research Station. I'm here representing the Lake Michigan Inshore Fish Working Group and speaking about the current status of yellow perch and other inshore fish species in Lake Michigan.
I'd like to start by acknowledging the efforts of the Inshore Fish Working Group, in particular Jason, Scott, Dan, Tammy, Rebecca, Aaron, and Troy. There's a significant amount of work to putting this data together from across the lake each year, and this group has been doing an amazing job at this for many years, so thank you.
Important inshore fish species in Lake Michigan are primarily yellow perch and walleye. We also have important fisheries for smallmouth bass, muskellunge and northern pike, and to a lesser extent catfish and panfish. We also try to keep track of non-game species in the nearshore zone as well as aquatic invasive species, although I won't address these two today. A little history of our group. We started out as Yellow Perch Task Group in 1994. Primary objectives were to coordinate assessments, produce an annual status report on yellow perch, support research efforts, and provide advice on management questions to the Lake Michigan Committee. In 2014, we evolved into the Inshore Fish Working Group. We had a lot of the same responsibilities, but are attempting to expand the species mix that we report on and assess. Lots of products available, including publications, annual reports, and web information on the GLSC website. And we'd be happy to provide that information if you'd like to contact me. Start out talking about the status of yellow perch. We assess perch throughout the lake and try to get indices of adult abundance, recruitment, and age structure for the populations. Yellow perch harvest lake-wide has been well below the fish community objective of 2 million pounds harvested for more than the last 20 years. And you can see in this graph the recreational and commercial harvest lake-wide, and again for the last 20 years or so we've been in the area of about 200,000 pounds with a little bit of an increase in the early 2000s. Focusing in on more recent years of the time series, we do see that there is some fluctuation in lake-wide harvest. We saw a peak around 2005 to 2007. Most of those fish came from the 1998 year class. And then in more recent years, we saw contributions from the 2010 and 2015 year classes, with again a little bit of an increase right in recent years towards the end of the time series.
It's important to point out that we do have a significant ice fishery in Green Bay in some years. This is some data provided by the Wisconsin DNR and shows that in some of the years that the winter fishery in Green Bay has been more than half of the total yellow perch harvest. Recent data has shown a slight increase in the Green Bay fishery, and this is consistent with what we've seen in other parts of the lake as well.
So as I mentioned, we try to get measures of recruitment and adult abundance around the lake, and this is an example of some of the recruitment data that we have from Green Bay. In recent years, we'd characterize this as relatively poor recruitment of young fish into the population. This was consistent across a lot of the data series that we looked at from all the agencies.
Numbers from our standard adult gillnet index have also been low. These are data from Illinois and Wisconsin DNR for the southern part of Lake Michigan. The asterisk indicates missing data in 2020 for many of us due to COVID restrictions. While Illinois saw a slight bump in numbers in 2019, most jurisdictions have seen reduced adult catches since around 2010.
So walleye are another important nearshore fish, and here's a couple of nice adult walleye. The one on the left-hand side there is from Green Bay, and the one on the right is from northern Lake Michigan up around Beaver Island. And they're walleye is an important fishery, although limited to certain areas of the lake. Contrary to the pattern we saw for perch, walleye lake-wide harvest has been above the fish community objective of 200,000 pounds for the last 10 years. And we see a little bit of fluctuation, but generally increasing trend in walleye harvest lake-wide.
We're doing lots of great research and assessment on walleye around the lake, but especially in Green Bay. In the upper left corner of this slide, you can see that Wisconsin DNR completes annual young year recruitment assessments using electrofishing in southern Green Bay. While the numbers fluctuate, you can see that we have reasonably good recruitment of walleye every 3 to 5 years, with the most recent event occurring in 2018. I also remind people about the neat work being done exploring movement and stock structure of walleye in Green Bay. There's a large telemetry array in the bay that's helping us gain information about how walleye use this system. And hopefully we'll be able to use this array in the future to explore similar questions for other nearshore species like smallmouth bass.
So some of these other fish are minor components of the lake-wide fishery, but still pretty important. Things like smallmouth bass, pike, muskie, catfish, and panfish. There's important catch and release fisheries for a lot of these fish. And this is something where we are really just getting started in developing collaborative indices and collaborative information on these nearshore fishes. We don't have a specific quantitative fish community objective for bass, pike, and panfish, but you can see that harvest lake-wide has been relatively stable, fluctuating between 50 and 100,000 pounds annually from really for the entire time series, and with no really significant increasing or decreasing trend in harvest. Smallmouth bass provide really quality fisheries in several areas of the lake. This has been true historically, but currently Lake Michigan, and particularly northern Lake Michigan and Green Bay, are widely recognized as some of the best bass fishing areas in the country.
There's an important and expanding smallmouth bass fishery in northern Lake Michigan. You can see from the upper left figure, which is based on Michigan DNR Creel survey data, that more than 100,000 smallmouth bass have been caught annually in recent years in northeastern Lake Michigan waters. Similar high quality fishery exists in the Wisconsin waters of Green Bay and on the eastern side of the Door Peninsula, where targeted catch rates are close to a fish per hour in most recent years. We do have an amazing smallmouth bass fishery in Lake Michigan, but we're also seeing some potential threats to that fishery, and chief among those threats in recent years has been this wounding that you see in the pictures. Our charter boat program coordinator in Michigan, Donna Westender, started getting reports a few years back from charter captains seeing this wounding, and we initially thought it was lamprey attacks on smallmouth. But started consulting with others around the lake, Scott Hansen with the Wisconsin DNR and others, and they were seeing the same thing. Testing last year in both Wisconsin and Michigan indicated that these fish were positive for the largemouth bass virus. So we're continuing testing this year and trying to determine, both the cause, the prevalence around the lake. We still have a good handle on how prevalent this is, and then what kind of effect it might have on smallmouth bass population. So some important work that's ongoing at this time.
So I spent a little bit of time, the last time we reported to the Lake Committee, talking about muskellunge, and today I spent a little bit more time talking about northern pike. And you can see from the pictures here that we have really quality fisheries for both these species, especially in Green Bay. The graph in the lower left-hand corner is some information, again, provided by Troy Zorn on northern pike survey catch rates in the northern part of Green Bay. These are gillnet catch rates of northern pike. You can see, like walleye, we're seeing really pretty good numbers and increasing trend in northern pike in a lot of that area of the lake. The upper right graph is some creel information provided by Tammy Paoli. And again, we see a really nice, stable, high quality northern pike fishery in Green Bay. Again, as with yellow perch, the 2020 data was limited a bit by COVID restrictions, but we still saw pretty good numbers of northern pike harvested in Green Bay last year. So I'll conclude just talking a little bit about where we are in terms of the inshore fish community objectives, and then spend a minute or so talking about things that the inshore fish working group are currently working on and have slated to work on in the future. In terms of the fish community objective of maintaining self-sustaining stocks, yellow perch are self-sustaining, and again, as I mentioned earlier, we have hopes that they're rebuilding. Walleye are self-sustaining in Green Bay and Little Bay to Knock, and numbers are increasing and have been well above the fish community objective. Other species are self-sustaining, but relatively minor components of the lake-wide fishery. And now with respect to the expected annual yields, yellow perch, as I mentioned, has been below this target yield for 20 or more years, and walleye have been above the target for the fish community objective target for the previous 10 years.
We don't have a specific fish community objective target for total annual harvest for all nearshore fish, but we've looked at this in the past year in the context of developing nearshore indicators. In general, we see relatively stable total harvest numbers from year to year. They're ranging from about 600,000 to about 1 million pounds annually over this time period.
Things the Inshore Fish Working Group are working on. We're continuing to produce the annual report. As I mentioned, this is available, posted on the GLFC website. We're trying to better integrate other inshore fishes into that report. It was historically a yellow perch report, but we're trying to put some information on other species in there as well. We've been using a somewhat experimental method of determining recruitment that we call this a micro mesh gill net in certain areas of the lake, and we want to spend some time integrating that into the lake-wide assessment plan, into our reporting over the next couple of years as well. And then if people listen to the primary lake committee meeting, you know that we're working towards a new state of the lake format, and so the inshore fish working group is going to be working on how to put the information that we have into those scorecards and new state of the lake reports. So with that, I'll say thank you for your interest in the inshore fishes of Lake Michigan, and say that I'd be happy to communicate with anyone to answer questions you might have about this presentation. Thank you.